So it does turn over, so that's good. I can see mice nest from the exterior fan shroud, so that's always a good sign. Today we're going to take it apart, evaluate it, and see what we need for parts, and then do another video when we get this thing put back together. Show you guys what ins and outs of these exciters, kind of things to look out for on the 340. We'll get that fan shroud off the top here. If these bolts will cooperate with us. Get some of this stuff off, and then I'll usually take the magneto housing off and the engine plate and exterior stuff. So do that. The fan shrouds are different from a 340 to a 440 exciter. So 340 fan shroud is kind of special, just with the way the fan shrouding is. Try to get these suckers. Oh, nice and tight though, I'll give you that. Got one more to get out. Tight as hell. Take that out. Whew. Mice nest awaits us. So that still has the rubber seals on the fan shroud. Ooh. The mice nest is real in there, guys. Oh boy, that looks fun. I believe we got to get the fan and cup off. And I believe there's some bolts behind there for this mag housing, so I'll work on getting that off. Got a couple more fasteners over here, Phillips heads for the fan skirts, we'll call them, for lack of a better term. The 340 is going to have SS338 stamped on the mag housing, typically. It's also going to be piston port, not reed valve, like the 440. So that's another difference. Ooh. I have to get the old impact driver out for that one. I don't know. Oh. Got her, but not great. Sucker was tight. I got that still grounded there. This one, the coil would be mounted here, I believe, on this. All these little Phillips head bolts. Actually, I could probably leave that there and I can just take it off here. It's got a 10 mil on the back with a lock washer. Get that all taken off there. Get these bolts out. The screws are nice and shiny yet. You never know, this could be like a fresh top end and it never got ran, or it could be a hole in the piston. I have not looked, so should be a fun time. Let's take this ground wire off. I'll put the fastener back on. Bracket here. That over there. That's all on. I'll work on getting the recoil cup off, which is going to be a 12. It's a 10 mils. I believe this is a 78 motor because it had the butterfly carb. So 78 would have been that. 76 and 77 are going to have that key and round slide. that. A couple bolts there. 10 millimeter. Take that. And shroud off. Got a couple tips and tricks we're going to do with these fans as well. I'll show you guys that in a later video, I think. I believe that comes out, and you'll see there's some, well, along with the mice debris, you're going to see some 10 millimeters for the fan housing back here. So go ahead and we can. Those are pretty darn tight. That one was tight at least. Man, that mice nest. I'm doing this bare hands, which is usually frowned upon with mice nest. I always wash my hands and never touch your face when you've been dealing with shit like that. I believe it's on dowel pins. And wow, the mice nest is real. Whew. You guys can see the mice nest. Whew. It was bad. All kinds of bad stuff in there. Whew. I think this was in a warehouse where my brother-in-law had it. I think. I'm gonna go take this, throw it away. Flywheel looks super nice, so it does turn over. Now we'll work on getting the intake and exhaust manifolds off. So those are Allen, I'm thinking they're 6s. This is the intake manifold from that 340. Oil injection lines would go here. When you're doing an oil injection relay, you got to make sure you plug these. Here's the intake boot from the 340. You can see the entire back of it's ripped off. That's super common on the 340s, on the original intake boots. It's like the rarest thing to find one still in original condition that's not completely obliterated. There's a couple guys that are making new ones of these to fit in there. What I usually do is I'll weld this up a little bit, take it to my engine builder machinist. He'll weld this up. We'll delete 2 of these holes. We'll drill and tap for M8 by 125. We'll put a 38 Mikuni flange diagonal, one way or the other, and we'll just kind of port match everything to fit. So that's what I've done on the other exciter motor that we have. So I'll probably do something similar to that. But like I said, this is one thing on the 340 exciter that's super common and has been unavailable for years, you know, to get new. So pretty thick intake gaskets as well on this one. I did glance at the top end through the exhaust port. Doesn't look too bad, actually, so that's good. You know, it doesn't look like melted rings or scuffed pistons or cylinders, so that's awesome. I'm gonna get this last Phillips head out here. Get that out. And I believe the rest of the shroud will come off then. We got all our little... Oh, no, I lied. I have one more. There's one more tucked away on PTO side top. We got all of our fasteners there. Now this all comes off. This fan shroud's pretty rusted. I do have a couple more of these at home, so I can always put a different one on here. Looking through the intake here, looks just a little on the dry side, but it looks good, so that's excellent. I'll work on getting the oil pump off of here next. Looks like somebody may have been in there already, potentially. So these here are the earlier oil pump drives. So the clutch has a gear on it, not the crankshaft. Like on the phasers, some of the SRVs have that gear pressed onto the crank stub. These would run a gear on the back of the primary, running the gear on the oil pump. So a little bit different there than some. Here's the oil pump. You can see there's your drive gear, some grease in there. Very tight fitting on the dowel pins. Took me a while to jam something like a screwdriver or something in there and tap on it, tap on the side of it, and jar it loose. So that's probably been on there since '78. I would assume nobody's ever taken it off. We'll be deleting that anyway, so we won't need that. Crank seal had some nasty old grease on it, so that's good. I'll probably pull engine plate off. Gotta get those are 17s, I think. So just got like a lock nut with a flat washer. Tip this thing and take the plate off. What we did on our race sleds is I think we took the studs out of the bottom of the engine, and we just we actually ran regular bolts in our motor plate, so a little bit easier that way. The Exciter uses just 4 bolts, or they're actually like, the studs are stick up halfway, and these are like real long bolts with threads, half dead flies in there. So they're kind of a goofy setup that way. These notorious for loosening up, blowing head gasket, or getting spittle out of the head gasket onto the fan shroud. So it's always getting meticulous about tightening these and checking the head torque. We do it almost every couple races, if not sooner, almost every. So that's something we've been doing. And on these, I'll Sharpie on there PTO, or at least a P, and then an M for magneto. And then before I wash them, I'll scribe that in there so then the marks can't go missing on us. So you can see these short little bolts with what I'm talking about. They have threads inside. So I got a P on there for PTO. They are side specific, of course, because the fan shroud bolts have to bolt in certain areas. It's got a very old looking head gasket, thinner side. It was running good though, the plug's burning good. So that's nice. This one looks fairly good too. Yeah, this one was burning fine. It looks okay. Excellent. And these bores look okay. A lot of carbon. Some ashy oil in there. I'll get this flywheel and ignition stuff removed here next. Then we'll pull the cylinders and everything like that. I believe that's like a 15/16 probably. Yeah. Let's zip this off. Get that off. I got one of these SLP flywheel pullers. See the part number there? Here's one of my favorites. A buddy of mine actually got this for me as a gift. That was super nice. Now I gotta get some of these, if they're long enough, I hope. Key thing is you don't want to put these bolts in too far that you hit the stator, but you want them in far enough that there is some thread contact and they're even. That's the biggest thing. see if this puppy will pop off. Yep. So that fairly simple, zipped right off. Flywheel pulley like this is very key if you're going to be doing any sort of rebuilding in your careers of fixing stuff. Our last one actually had a bad stator on on our race motor. We actually put the 440 ignition in it. 440 exciter in 78 for sure is the same as the 340. I believe 77 as well. 79 might also be. I know 80 is different. Other guys that know more might be able to correct me on that, but I know 78 for sure. The crankshaft is the same. Crankcase is different. And cylinders, of course. But the ignition and the crank itself is the same. Also, we mark the stator where it is. There's 4 Phillips head screws holding the stator in. So we can do that. See if they come off with the regular screwdriver or not. Oh, yeah, they came loose. I got a cheap Pittsburgh one. Every tool truck makes one of these. Not my best job with it, but it came out. Shit was bouncing around. Getting these cylinders off. Just very gently helping them up. Oh yeah, the rings are free. Probably stock bore. Stock looks like maybe somebody cleaned the ports. Yeah, it looks like somebody touched up the ports in this one a little bit. Just a fuzz. I can see a little bit. I'll take my flashlight out so you guys can see. You can see a little bit. Flashlight. You can see that fresh grind in the intake port over there. Little bit of porting. Wouldn't even call it porting. I would just call it cleaning up the casting. Oh, it's nasty. Nasty smelling stuff right there. The other one off here. Yeah, that one's still free. One has a little bit more buildup in it. Not bad. Just dry. Yep, that one was also just touched up a bit. Fuzzies. Got the cylinders off at least. The bores don't look too bad. Pistons are, honestly, you could probably was a running engine. So that's a good sign. We don't have to like redo the cylinders. We can probably just hone those out. Check bore size and clearances. I have a bunch of stock parts and some other 10 over stuff that we could, if we had to put different cylinders on, we could. We'll get these, hopefully get these circlips out on these pistons and get these pistons off. We'll label them. We'll check the ring gap on the old cylinder bore, see how worn out they really are. And then we'll get that bottom end split and that'll be it. Pistons are off. Looking at the bottom end, I don't believe there's any play in it. Feels good. Just a little side to side, which is normal. A little bit of rust starting down there. Not bad. So not bad. Still rolls smooth. What I'll do next is stand it up here. and start zipping out bolts. Most of these are going to be 12s. There probably might be some different lengths, guys. I'll kind of note that out as we go. Typically where the dowel pins are in the crankcase halves is where the long bolts are going to be. So we'll get our 12 back on here and go to town on there. I'll put some oil on the wrist pin bearings. Here's a close-up of the piston. So you just got like a little bit of coking, like almost like signs of overheating or heat above by the ring there. With these single ring, L-ring style pistons, it's kind of all the Exciters 340s I've ever seen when they were stock kind of look like that. So not too concerned. Honestly, not bad pistons. They're art pistons, so I believe those are OEMs, probably stock bore. I'll have to measure that in a different video, but yeah, there wasn't any match for this. This hole here, guys, that I'm pointing my finger at on the outside, that takes a long bolt like the center ones do, and there's just 3 short ones on the outside then. The rest of them are all the same, but the long one would go on the outside here. If you guys are ever messing with one of these. Some people have never even seen a 340 Exciter, so, or they've only heard of it, never really took them apart. Kind of a rare item. There's not a ton of them out there. There she is. There's usually an alignment ring inside these crankcases, guys. Just working on the aluminum like that. Not going to break anything. Being gentle. There's the top half. Bearing blocks. Little alignment rings in there. Crank feels really good. There's a crankcase. Half here. That is excellent. I was going to inspect, pull the crank out, if she'll come out. Some of these are pretty darn stubborn sometimes. Looks like this one's going to cooperate, so that's good. There's the bottom crankcase half. Alright guys, so crankshaft is out. Pretty painless there. Nothing too crazy. Came out better than most of this vintage. So that's good. Always good to have that. Not fight you too bad. The PTO bearing's got a little bit of noise here. So I'll probably flush that out a little bit. And then just re-oil everything up for the most part. For now, I'll flush everything out in the parts washer. I don't believe it's going to need a rebuild in my opinion. So that'll conclude the old Exciter teardown. Spare motor for our race sled, or just a donor motor just in case. We will continue building this thing in future videos. We'll do a quick and dirty rebuild on it. New crank seals, of course, new gaskets. We'll go through the crank and make sure all the bearings sound really good. Flush everything out, re-oil it. If the end bearings are bad on the PTO end, most likely we'll get those replaced. Pistons, we'll clean those up really good. We'll check the ring gaps, maybe reuse them, or we'll put new stock rings on those. Depending if I can find NOS stuff. I might even have NOS original pistons. We'll clean up those cylinder bores, take a look at those, and just start polishing things up and get the crankcases all ready, and that'll do it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We'll make future videos, of course, as the time goes on here. If you have questions about rebuilding one of these or anything in general, just leave them in the comments. Try to answer them best we can. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one.